Hello again. Going back to first reactions to watching Making a Murderer. Um, I've spoken to quite a lot of people about this and what their first reaction was, and again, you get quite a range of opinions on what they took from the documentary, the excellent documentary, which by having it in 10 1 hour long episodes, it really does cover quite a lot. Now, I hate to tell one or two people this, but my initial reaction to it was, one of them was anger at Brendan Dassey for his, for simply acquiescing to everything, to never arguing, never putting up any kind of a fight. They completely knocked the fight out of him, and then it was just like putty in their hands. And it took me a long time to get over this initial anger at Brendan, I must admit, because I could see how damaging it was to Stephen Avery, the fact that he had just rolled over and let them rub his belly, so to speak, Although in one conversation with Robert Herman, the sheriff of Manitowoc, I said that, slightly tongue-in-cheek, I said that, of course, the good thing is that Brendan Dassey has now achieved his high school diploma. Don't you think it would be a good idea if all juveniles, if they were about to leave school, were then locked up until they had passed their high school diploma, even if it did take 10 or 11 years, but he didn't reply to that because, as I say, that was tongue-in-cheek, and obviously it's quite a draconian idea, but I do think at times that is one very, very big problem that certainly I've discussed with a lot of people, is the fact that people have difficulty communicating, understanding, their ability to deal with situations is very limited. Of course, I mentioned before, we were appalled, weren't we, at the phone call between Barb, Scott and Stephen Avery. A good example of the fact that, some people cannot communicate sensibly with one another. And of course, it was very interesting, wasn't it, that after the subpoena, that Barb handed over the Dassey computer. I won't even begin to think about, why was it still around? Why wasn't it in the bottom of a rubbish heap somewhere? I have no idea, and I think that's for other people to speculate on. I'm not going to speculate on that. However, I must admit, I did private message Barb, and I thanked her, because surely from most of the supporters' point of view, that is a good thing that she has handed it over. So I thanked her. I said it was brave of her and well done. And she replied back, well, I've got nothing to hide. We've got nothing to hide. We, as in everybody in her family, have had nothing to do with it. Which is understandable for her to reply like that. Of course, the big problem is that she can't have been with Bobby and Scott 24/7, 365 days. You can't know everything about everybody. A little bit like I've recently watched the Staircase. A little bit like The Secrets of Mike Peterson. They were very damaging to him, but the rest of his family didn't know anything about it. Now, of course, it's very important, I think, to remember that Kathleen Zellner, in her motion, it's Stephen Avery that is blaming Bobby and Scott. It's not Kathleen Zellner naming them. This is important, because I don't think we're anywhere near yet, Kathleen Zellner getting all the facts and all the evidence that she wants in this case. But we do, I'm sure we all feel, feel pain for Stephen and Brendan in this case, you know. I suggested to some people the other day that, they've been incarcerated wrongly now for, if you take both Stephen's cases and Brendan's, around about 16,000 days that they've been locked up. And I'm reminded that there was over 500,000 people signed the petition to Barack Obama, and we've got Facebook support groups with, thousands, tens of thousands, 20,000 members. I know I, for one, would quite happily have swapped one of my days of being a free person for one of their days of being incarcerated so that they could be out. And if every supporter did that, they would have never ever have spent a day wrongly in prison. I'm just going to change this over. And I'm sorry if this is a little bit sort of unconnected. As I say, I've got to work off little white pads here. This is interesting. A well-known Canadian who strongly supports Brendan, but apparently strongly believes that Steve is guilty. I've always been in regular contact with him, and to be honest, after the SCOTUS decision, we had a chat about things, and he said, to be honest, Paul, I'm getting fed up with this case, and he's moving on, and at times that is very, very tempting. It really is quite a drain emotionally following this case. The one thing though that we always agreed on was the terrible state of the American legal system. So rest assured, I'm not going anywhere. As I've told a lot of people, I have made friends with so many people across there in America that, even once everything is resolved, we will still continue to be good friends. I mentioned previously about the staircase. Amazing how many parallels there are. What did I take from watching it the first time? That very much the legal system there is simply a game to be won. There's no real desire to get to the truth, certainly not as far as the prosecution are concerned. It struck me that there's very, very few rules that people have to follow. The big problem for me was the public opinion. The reporters were so biased in that case, which I believe was also similar in the Stephen Avery case. But whatever rules were set in place, easily broken. So I'm left thinking, well, it's just as bad in North Carolina as it is in Wisconsin. And I feel very sad for Americans because they have this terrible legal system, which is clearly full of tunnel vision. Talking of which, I've received a little bit of flack over a question to Jerry Buting about tunnel vision. And I'm not going to go all over it again, other than to say that the best answer that I've had to date was actually from Carla Garcia, when she said that, it's very, very likely that Jerry wants to say a lot more about the tunnel vision and the corruption, but he can't do so yet. So if that's the case, I am quite happy with that. I certainly have no animosity towards Jerry Buting or anybody else on the defence side. I have had a lot of conversations with an author of a book, to do with Jerry Buting and Peg Lautenschlager. Although recently, I must admit, and probably for the last 6 months, the only thing we've ever discussed are cars, we're both petrol heads, speeding tickets, a bit about his girlfriend, bingo, and a racehorse tip. So if you want a racehorse tip, private message me. One interesting thing, just to finish up with, before Making a Murderer came out, his appeals were denied by the District 2 of the Wisconsin Appeals Court. That same appeals court, of course, have sent the case back to Judge Superwich. And at the moment, the judges in that District 2, which covers Manitowoc, include Aliza Neubauer, if I've got the name right, Paul Riley. Now, they were two of the judges that denied Steve before Making a Murderer came out. The other two judges, very interestingly, are Mark Gundrum, who would not be involved in this case, and Brian Hagedorn, or Hagedorn. And I hear a very vicious rumour that Brian Hagedorn might in fact be a rarity, an honest judge in Wisconsin. Now, we have to wait and see. Apparently, the case, when it goes to the appeals court, will be heard by 3 judges. Anyway, I've kept you long enough, well, catch you again sometime soon. Bye for now.